there is an increase in. But what the CDC report leaves out is that it is largely one of the main contributing factors is over a third of Americans' households have guns. And in areas or communities where people have easy access to guns, the suicide rate is higher. Because if you try to overdose with medications, you have a 5% chance of succeeding, right? Gun, you have an 85% chance of succeeding. And since suicide is largely an impulse, easy access to guns means more suicide rates. If you own a gun, you're more likely to die by your own gun than a criminal or whatever. So the CDC kind of leaves this out. This is an article in the Intercept by John Thompson. The CDC does show that suicide rates have increased dramatically across the United States from 1999 to 2016. 49 states saw suicide increase by 5% or more. 25 of those states saw increases of a staggering 30% or higher. By 2016, almost 45,000 Americans were taking their own lives every year. And while the CDC report talks about how guns are the most common method for these suicides, accounting for about half of all cases, it fails to understand the extent to which these alarming rates may be attributable to the country's utter saturation with civilian firearms. It's not just about firearms. Deborah Stone, the lead author of the study, said it's about other methods of suicide such as hanging, suffocation, poisoning, and the like. While that may be true, the suicide rates are increasing across the board. Research consistently points to a strong association between firearm access and suicide deaths. So, this is the thing. They put it, we'll make it very simple here. Unlike other common methods of suicide, firing a gun is immediate, irreversible, and a reliably lethal act. A 2008 study in the New England Journal of Medicine compared states with the lowest household gun ownership rates, 15%, to those with the highest, 47%, while non-firearm suicides were basically equivalent in both groups. Firearm suicides were about 4 times more prevalent in the latter. So you understand that? So mental health is everywhere. People suffering from mental illness is everywhere. People wanting to take their own lives and actually acting out on it with suffocation, hanging, whatever. But in the states that had higher gun ownership, there was more gun suicides. More suicides were happening with guns, right? 4 times more prevalent. The more firearm-saturated population experienced about twice as many suicide deaths overall. Did you hear that? So the states that have higher gun ownership have a higher suicide rate. But thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. The CDC does say this recommendation: reduce access to lethal means such as medications and firearms among people at risk of suicide. But you know what? The CDC relies on Congress for funding. So they can't go hard with this study and say, oh, more guns equals more suicides. They just can't come right out and say that. So in 1993, the agency supported a study that found that people with guns at home faced a risk of suicide 5 times greater than without. If you own a gun, you're 5 times more likely to commit suicide with it. 3 years later, Congress passed what is known as the Dickey Amendment, which effectively prevented the CDC from funding targeted research into gun violence. So all you Second Amendment people out there, you see this bullshit? You see how the NRA and the gun lobby, what they do? This is what the oil company does. Oh, there's no link to contaminated water to cancer. This is what tobacco has done. This is what sugar has done. The sugar lobby. Oh, there's no connection. There's no connection. And this is what they do. If you think the NRA is any different than the war machine or the oil machine or big pharma or anything like that, you are deluding yourself. You're deluding yourself. I've had some tough days in my life, in the last year recently. And if I had a gun, I probably would have killed myself. There's no two ways about it. I'm not proud of that. I don't think that's a good thing. I'm not. But it's why I've never owned a gun. And if you are pointing out some corruption out there, you have to look at all of it. You have to look at all of it. It's why I go so hard against the Democrats. I used to vote Democrat. I'm not going to register as one, but they're a little bit bad. No. If I'm going to sit here and say the Republican Party is corrupt, the Democratic Party is corrupt. And if you're like a pro-gun person and you're saying, oh, the two-party system's corrupt and all this, you have to look at this. You have to look at this. There is corruption everywhere. And they passed a law to prevent the CDC from investigating and from funding targeted research into gun violence. See how they do that? They cut your money. Make it hard to do. Guys, I need your support. Go to the Patreon page. They're demonetizing my videos as they always do. I have more subscribers than I've ever had, and they're still limiting my views. They're limiting my monetization. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood. Also, Progressive Comedy Tour, June 20 through the 24th. Ron Placone and I are going to Nashville, Huntsville, Asheville, Louisville, and Atlanta, June 20 through the 24th. Go to GrahamElwood.com. And the link to this article is also in the show notes. Thank you.